library at the moment, by their own steam, are actually served in their own homes by Home Library Service, and it's an important partnership that we have with the voluntary sector. So, just to kind of continue on the theme, in terms of investment that's been made in the service, I think it's fair to say that North Yorkshire, when it has had the money, and when it has not been pressed in financial terms in the way it is now, has invested heavily in its library service. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that, you know, there has been, against the national trend, because I don't know how many of you have been listening to people like the Adam Smith Institute on Saturday saying libraries are over, they've had the day, why are we spending money on them? Why are we bothering because everybody has access to Amazon? And hey, the Kindle reader's the next way to read books, you know, who needs libraries? But actually what North Yorkshire did was it went out and consulted with its communities and asked them what they wanted from their libraries, and they said, well, we like the idea of a community hub, we like coffee machines, we want informal settings, we want nice furniture, we want somewhere to take our children, we want good access to computers, we want good opening hours. And North Yorkshire has actually invested heavily on those things, and as a result, we've actually bucked the national trend, and we've had big increases in terms of new members, in terms of people coming in and using books and computers. And as I said, we've had great success when we've worked with partners in developing services like the Home Library Service. The other thing, though, to modernise is we have also invested in the new technology. So we are looking to the future and saying, OK, we recognise that people will still want access to things like e-books. People will still want to go online to do certain things, renew their books online. And at the same time, we've been developing those services as well. So, one of the questions that's, you know, that we're all asking this evening and as part of the consultation process, which ends on the 28th of February, is how do we spend that resource? How do we make the decisions around just over £5 million that's going to be left to the library service in 4 years' time? How are we going to make that money work for North Yorkshire and for the communities of North Yorkshire? Given that everybody is very, very keen to keep as much of the professionally run service as they can, and I think that's another important factor. One of the things I think we have to say is people feel very attached to buildings, and you know that's quite an interesting consideration for some communities. But what we have to think about is, and one of the questions we've been asked is, why didn't you just take 28% off everything? And that's, you know, that's a fair question, and as Derek said, you know, people want to see the pain shared out. The issue about that is that building costs are high for us as an authority, and as you know, because you all, you know, will know from things like fuel costs, lighting costs, those bills are not going down. If we're not careful and if we don't think hard about the estate that we've got and the way that we currently run it, if we cut down the opening hours and just said, OK, we'll keep all the buildings or whatever, or keep all the vehicles, but we'll only open them at, you know, fewer hours, we will end up with actually less use of very expensive services and facilities, where we've invested heavily in things like broadband and connectivity. Now, a lot of people have said, why have you gone for 18 core libraries and left other libraries with the proposition of being community owned and run? One of the things that we are saying about the 18 core is we're not saying that they keep all of the resources, pull up the drawbridge, and the rest of the library estate can get on with it and sort things out for themselves. The idea of maintaining professional staff, book stock, that will be shared amongst the whole estate of the library service, and that's an important factor, is important, because if we are going to be working with communities, we will still need people who can pass on that expertise and work with you. So what we are looking at is a model, and we've got other models around the county where some help is given by volunteers, and they're up and running now. Some of them have been running for a good 6 months or more. But some of that support, or a majority of that support, is given by the library service, and that is one of the things that we would be looking to in terms of developing community-run libraries. What we're not saying is that one size fits all, and that every community, that we have, you know, a template and that you must fall into this, that Easingwold will have to do things a certain way. What we're going to have to do is to have some very in-depth conversations with groups and organisation who want to work with the library service to maintain as much of what we've got now as we possibly can. I did mention the super mobile. One of the areas that we have put into the consultation is what about, and people have said this to us, what's going to happen? Say we can't work with you on a solution. What if you do have to close the library at the end of the day? We're still looking at actually providing a service, and one of the things we've said it might be that we have to extend the number of supermobiles from 1 to 2. We also still need to carry on investing in the technology and library services online, and we'll also carry on working at developing the home library service for those people who can't get the service through any other means. So how did we come up with the proposals? Well, I think one of the things that we'd have to say, and I think Derek's already said this and it's important to say, we had to start somewhere, okay? We had to put something out for people like yourselves to get hold of, have a look at, pull it to pieces, tell us what you think. But actually, we had to do that. We had to put some proposals out. Those proposals are not in tablets of stone, and a number of people have said to us, on these occasions when we've been going out and talking to groups such as yourselves, you've already made your mind up. This is meaningless. Why are you bothering? Because you've already decided how you're going to do it. Actually, that isn't true. And the other thing is that this consultation process is already changing things, and it's already changing thinking about the library service. People are already beginning to think, actually, maybe we ought to think again about, you know, some of the proposals that are on the page. So this really is a meaningful consultation process, which we've given the full 90 days to, and we still want to hear from you. But why did you come up with those 18? What we looked at was, where do we do most of our business? Where do most people go to use their library? I will be honest, when we looked at things like geography, population levels and distances from other libraries, we were on a bit of a continuum. Some libraries are within 1.5 miles of their nearest neighbour. Easingwold isn't, and we understand that. And actually, when we've been asked about why Easingwold, we had to do some very, very careful analysis. And really looking at it, you know, there isn't an awful lot to choose between the two communities. So in a sense, Easingwold is right up at the top in terms of the borderline. I think, to be perfectly honest, when we put this on the page, it was very much around the fact of the population levels compared with, you know, comparators of Easingwold and Thirsk, and the fact that, you know, Easingwold has fewer. When you put Thirsk and Sowerby together, the population's lower. However, one of the things, as I say, you know, this is a consultation process. People have given us their thoughts on that. What does it mean for Easingwold? At the moment, one of the things that we want to look for is a community solution. Now, given the number of people that have come along this evening, and also given the force of people that came out on Saturday morning, I think actually there are a lot of people here who are, or would be, prepared to work with us on that. And that's what this evening's about, really, to hear from you, to get your views, and to pick up what thoughts you have on that basis. We are also consulting with the staff at the same time, so the staff understand what's happening. Some people have asked us about the 1964 Public Museums, Libraries and Museums Act, and are we in contravention of it? The answer to that is no, we're not at the moment, because we're consulting with you. However, no decisions have been made. No decisions have been made. So therefore, any decisions that are, or recommendations that are made, will be in full cognizance of that, but the Act asks for a comprehensive and efficient service. And that is what we want to provide to Easingwold as best as we can with the resources that we've got. And that has been acknowledged by the Secretary of State and also the Minister. So, you know, Jeremy Hunt, Secretary of State, has said, we understand what North Yorkshire are trying to do in terms of community-led or community-run libraries. But also, Ed Vaizey, who's the Minister with responsibility for libraries, has said, we recognise the difficulties that library services are in at the moment and the kind of conversations that they're going to have with their local communities, and we will expect them to take into account and make all of the necessary considerations, and that will be done following this consultation process. Some people have already mentioned Wirral and the judgment, the intervention from the Secretary of State around their judgment. Their decision was to, I think, close about half of its libraries. The biggest criticism of Wirral was that it didn't consult, it didn't talk to local people, and didn't give long enough for people to actually give their views about what the proposals were. And I think, from this point of view, we are not following that line of inquiry. And that's the end of the formal presentation, but obviously we'll pass on now to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you for bearing with us in that slight change. As I said earlier, we're now going to have a response from Councillor Peter Salway, County Councillor Salway, followed by, briefly, County Councillor Caroline Patmore, and then after that we will be opening it to the floor. Peter?
It's a bit short as cable. Thank you, I think it's working now. Thank you, Brian. You've all heard from the officers about the savings that have got to be made by the County Council and the library service, and you've also heard of the savings that have already been made. It's quite impressive. The officers of the library service were tasked to identify these savings and consult with the public on the proposals. This consultation is still ongoing and no decisions have been or will be made until the consultation ends and has been evaluated. In hindsight, perhaps it was a mistake to use the word closure rather than future management or future delivery of the service, because that was the question all along. The final decision will be made by members of the council. As a council member, the only way that I can hope to make changes is to identify other savings or other sources of funding. We've all read the proposals and we've seen the presentation, but there is a better way, there is a fairer way for Easingwold. It should be possible to make savings in all libraries, which could mean that more libraries could be maintained with some professional staffing and funding, especially in the market towns, which includes Easingwold. That is what I am supporting, and that's what I should be pushing for at the council. Why should some libraries be fully funded and others not at all? As Derek said earlier, due to emerging views on the consultation, an extra £350,000 has been included in the draft budget, and it was agreed today by the executive. This money will be to facilitate the process. This money has been found by making further savings in another budget. This will give more time to work something out for the various